we even discussed telling everyone on Christmas Day. I know it's been a long time since I've uploaded my last video, and this one was a hard one for me to make. It is the 26th of December. It's Boxing Day today. Where do I start? Just after embryo transfer day, I did a pregnancy test just to make sure the trigger shot, the HCG from the trigger shot was completely out of my system. So day 1, 2, 3, and 4 days past my transfer, there was no positive pregnancy test, or no second line on my pregnancy test. So I knew that the trigger was completely out. So I wasn't getting any false positive readings. On 4 days past my 5-day transfer, I saw a very faint line, very faint line on my first response, early response pregnancy test. So I did get very excited. So it was my first ever positive pregnancy test. It's the first time I'd ever seen that second line before. So it was a very faint line. So I showed Mark. Mark didn't really see anything. I'm like, put your glasses on, it's there, I can see it. On 5 days past the 5-day transfer, the line started to get a little bit darker. 6 days past the transfer, it got slightly darker again. You could actually see the line. Like, it wasn't a faint line. Oh, it wasn't a very faint line. It started to get a bit darker. Like, you could see the line. You didn't need glasses to see the line. So 7 days passed and 8 days passed. It was at its strongest. So you've got the control line, which is like a dark pink. It was a pink dye test. So it wasn't that dark. It was almost there, but it wasn't as dark as the control line. So 7 and 8 days were quite strong. Then I took a test on 9 days past my 5-day transfer, and I realized that it kind of, like, I was expecting, bang, that dark line, but there was no dark line. It was the same. So I got really confused. I thought, nah, it's got to be darker. Like, it has to be darker. You know, every time you take the test, every day, it's got to go darker and darker and darker. So I did a morning 9 days past pregnancy test, and then I did a nighttime 9 days past test. And they were kind of the same. They were still a faint line. So that kind of raised some alarm bells. I go, nah. I don't know, I wasn't excited. I wasn't as excited. I was still happy because it was a positive pregnancy test, but it wasn't what I was expecting. Then on 10 days past my 5-day transfer, I took another pregnancy test that night, and it was it was back to what my first positive pregnancy test looked like. It was back to the 4 days past. At this stage, we were 10 days past, so from 4 to 10 should be a lot stronger. But it kind of, I realized from day 7 and day 8, it was at its peak. Then day 10, it started to drop off slowly. Like, it started to go backwards and kind of get lighter and lighter until day 10, where you had to squint to see it again. Like, you needed glasses to see it. So at that point, I kind of knew that, I don't know, I just thought, yep, we've lost it. On day 11, I went to get my blood test. So I went to the IVF clinic, had my blood test. I was devastated. I was really upset. I sat there, they drew my blood, and I didn't get the results straight away, but I just burst into tears. Like, I tried to hold it in while the nurse was taking my blood. Then that day, once the results were in, I think about 3 p.m, we had told the IVF clinic to contact Mark because I was at work that day. Mark was working from home, so he received the phone call. So I rang him from work, and you know, I couldn't wait. I just needed to know what the news was. I said, is it positive or negative? He's like, do you really want to know? I'm like, yes, I think I do. Yep, okay, just tell me, what is it? So he's like, it was negative. We were both really upset. But I guess at the end of the day, it's our first round. I don't know how people do like 10 rounds and still have sanity. So it's fine. You know, we said within 3 rounds, hopefully. I went in initially thinking, 10 rounds, like, just, I was really negative, thinking it'll take us forever to get pregnant, because it's already taken us like 3 years. But I guess once I started my injections, I got really excited. I guess I was happy because we were doing something about it. And I was just full of hope. I was excited. Taking my needles, I actually really, really enjoy taking my needles. I don't know, I'm a bit strange. I found it really fun. Like, I couldn't wait to get home to stab myself, as weird as that sounds. I'm like, yay, needle time. Couldn't wait for 10 p.m. 10 p.m. every day. I really enjoyed it. I'm not scared of needles. Mark was terrified of needles. So here I am. I was like, 3, 2, 1, bang, did it. I guess throughout the whole journey, the needles was like my highlight. Needles were fun. I started to get bloated maybe 2 days before they did my egg retrieval. I was a bit bloated, a little bit uncomfortable, but it was totally fine. But then once they took out the eggs, we had the egg collection, I feel like my body just could not handle it. It just felt like I bloated for about 2 weeks. I felt really sore. You know, I would be on the lounge, and I had no stomach muscles. Like, I couldn't pull myself up from the lounge, or if I was lying on my back and I turned to my side, I had to do it really slowly because I was in pain. It was excruciating, the pain. Yeah, it was unbearable at times. Like, I was screaming in pain. Yeah, after that cycle had finished, that's when my body kind of went back to normal. It was like my stomach was filled with liquid and I was about 6 months pregnant. Yeah, just really bloated. Mark gave me the bad news over the phone, that we weren't pregnant and that the cycle had failed. So the next day the nurse rang, and I said to her, like, I know it's not advised to do pregnancy tests, but I did one every single day for the whole 2-week wait after the embryo transfer. And she's like, that's fine, I would have done the same thing, it's completely fine. So she said, like, I just asked her why I had a positive pregnancy test, and then why it went from 4 days past the transfer being a faint line to about 7 and 8 days past being at its strongest pregnancy test, positive, and then on day 10 it was pretty much a negative again, so it kind of faded back to, there was still faint lines. So from 4 days past to 10 days past, there was always a positive pregnancy test. It just went from faint to dark to faint again. And I asked her why. So she said that it could have been the trigger injection, because the trigger injection has HCG in it. But I said to her, if it was the trigger injection from every single pregnancy test, so from the initial test that I took on day 4, or on day 1, it should have been its darkest. Then day 2, 3, 4, 5, it should have faded out. It should have faded, gone strong to faded out to nothing, because I took my trigger, yeah, and it just would have weaned off. But it wasn't like that. It was weak, strong, weak again. So her number one reason could have been the trigger, which I don't believe it was a trigger. Or it was a chemical pregnancy where the embryo would have stuck onto the uterine lining and then it would have just let go. Maybe there was chromosomal abnormalities, but I guess you won't know. It could have just been not a viable embryo to begin with. So I was devastated. I asked her how much HCG, because I had a positive pregnancy test, like how much HCG was in my blood test. She said nothing. There was no HCG at all in my system, which I find so hard to believe. I almost think that the nurse was not even looking at my papers, not even looking at the computer or my paperwork. Zero HCG level in my blood. It doesn't make sense. So I had my blood test on 11 days past. My strongest pregnancy test was 7 days past. So how from 7 till 10, like it was still a faint positive on day 10, how on day 11 was it like, was there zero HCG? It just doesn't make sense. I don't know. So when we did, like when the lines were starting to get darker, Mark and I were really excited. He goes, okay, now I don't need a squint to see this. I'm really excited. I'm happy. I do, like, Mark didn't really believe it, like, he could see the positive pregnancy test, but he didn't believe 100%. He said, like, I just don't want to get my hopes up. I just want you to get your blood test, and that way, if she says we're pregnant, then that's great, we're pregnant. But if she says we're not, like, just in case, I don't want to get my hopes up. But I guess while it was going from faint to dark, I was over the moon. I was convinced. I was like, yep, first round, we did it, awesome, like, this is real. I was so happy. We even discussed telling everyone on Christmas Day. We would have been maybe 2 months by then, 2 months pregnant. So yeah, you've got to wait till 3 months, but we'll just tell our close family. So, you know, we were thinking up scenarios. Oh, how should we tell them? And then Christmas Day came, which was yesterday. I couldn't really talk about it. Some people asked about it. It was just hard to talk about. I just answered their questions, and, you know, when I don't think about it, it's fine. When I think about it, I'm sad for myself. I'm sad for us. I'm sad that it didn't work out, but I guess at the end of the day, we've still got, we had 4 embryos, 1 was implanted and failed. We've still got 3 frozen embryos. So hopefully our baby is one of those embryos. I procrastinated making this video. I just thought, oh yeah, I should make this video. But I pushed it back and pushed it back and pushed it back, and now it's Boxing Day, December, and I just need to start the new year fresh. Christmas was hard. We will be starting our next cycle. We had to take a break for December because the clinic was closed. We will be starting again in January. So when my cycle comes naturally, that's when we're going to start. I roughly worked it out. I think it'll be maybe the 5th of January, could be the 10th of January. It's going to be a natural cycle. We went to the IVF clinic and sat down and spoke with our doctor. We told him about the pregnancy test, and he believes that it was a chemical pregnancy. He said it could be the trigger, but he believes that it could have been a chemical pregnancy. He said that he'll send us a information pack in our mail, so we did receive it. I've just got to sit down and read it all. I'm procrastinating that as well. Maybe I'll read it next year. So no injections. I guess the injections were to create follicles that they would then take out, like they'd take the eggs out. We've already created embryos, so we don't need to do the whole needle thing again. There is a risk that when they defrost these embryos, they might not survive the thaw. Our doctor said that there was a very low chance of that happening, so fingers crossed, we don't even have to worry about it. I guess, like, IVF is very mental. It's like a mental game. Taking these pregnancy tests, I think, you know, it was my first round. I just was really excited, and I just had to know. I could not wait my 2 weeks. Maybe the next round, do I take the pregnancy tests or do I not? Because this round, or the last round that just went by, I took the pregnancy test, I got excited, and then I was devastated. For the next round, do I just not take any pregnancy tests, be very patient, and just wait out my 2-week wait? I'm not patient. I am not patient, but I guess, yeah, it's so mental. Like, the only way to keep sanity is just to go to my appointments, do whatever I gotta do, just forget about it. Easier said than done. I'm not gonna forget about it. It's gonna be on my mind 24/7. The round that I just did, it was on my mind all the time. I was always touching my stomach. I knew what was inside my stomach. I guess it's the closest thing that I've ever had to being pregnant, so it was quite a special thing. So it's almost, next week will be New Year's. Every single year we say, this is the year that we'll have a baby. We tell each other every year that this will be the year that we have kids. This will be the year that I get pregnant. Hopefully for 2019 we will be pregnant and we will have a baby, but I don't think I'm going to start the new year by saying that. I really hope so, but I guess IVF is not guaranteed. You are not guaranteed a baby at the end of IVF. I hope so. I'm only 31, so I hope so. Hopefully by me making this video, I can just put it past me, put it behind me, move on. I'm not looking forward to round 2 of IVF. It's hard going to work full time and doing IVF. It was okay. I didn't really take too much time off. A little bit here and there, but it really didn't affect it. I think the hardest part with juggling work and IVF is going to work and thinking of IVF. Like just always thinking. Like, I don't know, it's always on my mind. It was constantly on my mind. You wake up and you remember IVF, or you go to bed and you remember IVF. Like, it's always in your mind. I think it's hard for family and friends to really understand exactly what I'm going through. I can tell people at work, but they won't really understand what I'm going through. Friends, family, they don't understand. So I guess you don't really get much support. It's like, yes, Mark and I are going through it, but it's most hardest on me because it's my body and I'm feeling the pains, I'm feeling the bloating, I'm feeling cramping. Yes, he's very supportive, but I think obviously the woman goes through more. So I'll start 2019 with a clear mind and a positive attitude, and fingers crossed. I will keep you updated for my 2019 January round 2 IVF.